Black CEO humiliated with cake by white Heiress, then she ends the $1 9B partnership. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Look at her covered in cake, acting like she actually belongs here. The words split the ballroom like a knife dragged across crystal. Laughter, bright, sharp, cruel, burst from the cluster of tuxedos and champagne-colored gowns gathered around the three-tier wedding cake. Phones rose instantly, lenses glittering like tiny predators catching the scent of blood. And there, at the center of the ridicule, stood her. Before the story continues, here is the mandatory opening message. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. She didn't speak. Not yet. Thick streaks of white frosting clung to her cheeks, dripping down her jawline and soaking into the collar of her black dress. Her fingers trembled around her phone. A woman in blush pink silk snorted, whispering loud enough for the room to hear. God, she's actually crying. Someone get her a mop. Behind them, chandeliers bathed the gala hall in warm gold that contrasted painfully against the humiliation smeared across her skin. The cake table had been knocked sideways during the commotion. Crumbs and frosting spattered across the marble floor like a battlefield of sugar and cruelty. At the front of the laughing crowd stood the white heiress, perfect curls, perfect smile, perfect confidence of someone raised to believe the world existed to adore her. She leaned in, her voice gliding out like a blade wrapped in velvet. Next time, sweetheart, try staying in the staff areas. You're making people uncomfortable. Another wave of laughter exploded behind her. The black woman's breath shuddered. Frosting and tears blurred together, dripping onto her dress in slow, humiliating rivers. The sting wasn't just from the cake, it was the stares, the delight, the dozens of strangers watching her pain as if it were the night's entertainment. Phones kept clicking. Someone zoomed in. Someone whispered, "This is going on TikTok first." Her knees threatened to fold, but she wouldn't give them that spectacle. She pressed her palm to her sternum, grounding herself against the humiliation pulsing hot across her skin. She inhaled once, slow and deliberate, letting the air steady something deep inside her, a place humiliation could bruise but never break. The heiress circled her like a victorious hunter, showing off prey. "I mean, really?" she laughed, gesturing toward the cake smashed across the woman's face. "Who invited you? Or did you sneak in with the caterers?" Guests who had been pretending not to watch now openly stared. One man nudged his friend. "She's not from here. You can tell." The black woman's phone buzzed in her hand, a faint vibration swallowed by the orchestra's strained attempt to keep the evening elegant. She wiped enough frosting from her cheek to hold the phone to her ear. Her voice cracked from shock, but the words were unmistakably clear. "Rachel," she whispered, her throat tight. "Are you still in position?" A quiet voice answered on the other end, unheard by everyone else but the woman, nodded slowly, breathing through the last of her humiliation. Something in her posture shifted, not anger, not vengeance. "Precision," the heiress scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, look," she said loudly. "She's calling someone. Maybe HR?" Snickers rippled through the crowd, but the black woman's expression changed, not dramatic, not explosive. "Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." It didn't yet understand that the woman covered in cake, not the laughing heiress, not the crowd, not the donors, held the fate of an entire corporate dynasty in the palm of her frosting-stained hand. The only sound was the orchestra faltering mid-note, as if the music itself sensed the shift. The heiress blinked. Wait, what partnership? But by then, The first domino had already fallen. And nothing, no apology, no laughter, no privilege could stop what was about to come next. 2. Part 2, The Atmosphere Breaks, to 600 Tokens. The laughter didn't fade all at once. It thinned like air leaking from a punctured balloon, slow, uneven, confused. People weren't sure why they'd stopped laughing, only that something in the room no longer matched the joke. A faint tremor traveled through the chandeliers above, scattering their light in fragments across the marble floor. Even the music stumbled. A violinist missed a note, bow trembling, eyes darting toward the woman covered in cake who now stood impossibly still. The heiress noticed it too. Not the humiliation shed caused that still delighted her, but the silence that no longer obeyed her. She forced a laugh, crisp and bright. "Oh, come on, everyone," she said, waving her hand as if shooing away a bad smell. "She's being dramatic. It's just cake." But the room didn't rise to meet her. Not anymore. The black woman lifted her chin, frosting sliding down the curve of her neck. Her breath evened, the faint tremble in her fingers fading as a new stillness, set in a stillness the room could feel before it could name. A waiter paused mid-step. A donor lowered her glass. Phones hovered uncertainly, neither rising nor falling. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and yet no one could articulate why. The heiress stepped closer, heels clicking like tiny hammers on stone. "Sweetheart," she said, cold sugar in her voice, "wipe your face before someone mistakes you for the dessert table again." Snickers, but weaker. The kind that weren't sure if they were allowed anymore. The black woman didn't react, not to the insult, not to the cameras, not to the humiliation still drying on her skin. Instead, she looked at her hand at the thin streak of frosting across her palm where Shed steadied herself after the impact of the cake. She studied it like a scientist observing residue from an experiment. Then she whispered into the phone, "Proceed to stage 2. It wasn't loud, it wasn't showy, but it felt seismic. A man near the bar whispered, "Stage 2 of what?" His wife nudged him sharply. "Don't get involved." But involvement was no longer optional. A subtle shift rippled through the room, the kind of shift you only notice when you're inside it. A handful of people stepped back, a handful leaned forward, and the heiress, for the first time all night, blinked in uncertainty. "What did you just say?" she demanded. The black woman lifted her gaze, meeting the heiress' eyes with a calm so sharp it sliced through the remnants of laughter. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She didn't explain. She simply said, "You should step back now." A few people gasped, not because of volume, but because of authority. The kind of authority that doesn't need an introduction or a title. The kind that feels like a closing door behind you and a locked room ahead. The heiress scoffed, but the sound cracked at the edges. "Excuse me? You're giving me orders now?" "I'm giving you warning," the woman replied, voice steady, low, and devastatingly calm. The silence around them tightened, not empty but pulsing with unspoken questions. Phones rose again slowly, this time not to mock but to document. Because humiliation could be funny, but consequences? Consequences were viral. The orchestra abandoned its attempt at elegance, the conductor lowering his baton as if acknowledging the shift in power he could feel rolling across the hall. Somewhere near the back, a staff member whispered, "Who is she?" The answer was coming, and when it arrived, it wouldn't be whispered. The heiress drew herself to full height, scoffing loudly enough to reclaim some audience. "You know what? If you have a problem, take it up with my family. We run this city." The black woman's eyes didn't move from hers. "No," she said softly. "You merely live in it." And for the first time, the heiress' smile faltered because, for the first time, she wasn't sure she understood what stood in front of her. This wasn't humiliation anymore. This was the beginning of collapse. Part 3, The Backstory, Under Pressure, to 600 Tokens. The room stayed unnervingly still as if the chandeliers themselves were holding their breath. Frosting continued to drip from her jawline, each drop marking time, each second pushing the heiress further into a danger she didn't yet understand. Someone near the silent orchestra whispered, "Why isn't she crying anymore?" Someone else murmured, "Because she's not just anybody." But the heiress kept performing confidence. She lifted her champagne glass hands steady, voice syrup sweet. "Oh, darling, please. Whatever little tantrum you think you're having, it ends now." The black woman didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't lift a hand to wipe the cake from her skin. Instead, she exhaled slowly, as though she were releasing years of patience into the chilled ballroom air. If anyone in that room had truly known her, they would have recognized the inhale. Because it wasn't the breath of a humiliated woman, it was the breath of a strategist, a tactician, a builder of empires. But none of them knew her, not really. They saw frosting, tears, a ruined dress. But they didn't see the childhood where she watched her mother scrub the lobbies of buildings she would one day own. They didn't see the nights she spent in community college computer labs, building a startup from a folding table. They didn't see the investors who dismissed her, the bank managers who doubted her, the executives who spoke over her until she learned that silence could be sharper than any retort. They didn't see the 23-hour days, the fired co-founders, the industry sabotage, the deals she clawed through brick walls for. They didn't see how she built her company Heiress Dynamics from a $10,000 scholarship into a multi-billion-dollar global powerhouse that controlled infrastructure technologies most corporations depended on but barely understood. And they definitely didn't know that the family of the White Heiress, the Winthrops, poster children of inherited wealth, were quietly drowning. Their real estate empire was faltering, their luxury brand portfolio was bleeding cash, and their salvation, their one lifeline, was a $1, a 9B technological partnership with Heiress Dynamics. The same partnership she had just ordered canceled, the same partnership they had begged her to finalize. But the heiress, wrapped in arrogance, had no clue. She didn't attend board meetings. She didn't read quarterly reports. She didn't understand that her father had built an empire on a cracked foundation, and without Heiress's investment, the cracks would swallow them whole. All she saw was a woman she assumed was beneath her. The heiress stepped even closer, heels echoing with entitlement. "You think you can threaten me? You think you can scare me?" She laughed, flicking a bit of frosting from the black woman's shoulder with 2 fingers. "You're nothing but a messy interruption." A few people gasped. A few stepped back. But the woman with cake dripping down her neckline stood motionless, her eyes steady, not angry, not hurt, just aware. Aware of the truth no one else knew yet. She was not an interruption. She was the infrastructure of an entire economy. A voice crackled from her phone. Rachel's voice, composed and razor-sharp. "Mom." Confirmation received. "The Winthrop portfolio is now in rapid decline. Their liquidity line just froze. And they're calling. All of them." The woman didn't break eye contact with the heiress. "Good," she whispered. "They can wait." A tremor rippled through the guests. This was no outburst, no melodrama. This was the calm precision of someone who held the blueprint to the room's future in her palm. For the first time all evening, the heiress' confidence flickered. Not because she understood the magnitude, but because she sensed instinctively that she was standing in front of someone who built worlds while she merely lived inside them. And the room felt it too. The ballroom wasn't breathing anymore. It was watching. Phones hovered like vultures circling a battlefield, their tiny red recording dots glowing in the dim chandelier light. Every angle, every smear of frosting, every tremble of a candle flame, every flicker of fear beginning to creep across the Heiress's smile was being captured, multiplied, and silently sent into the digital bloodstream. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Someone else replied, "It's already on 3 live streams." The heiress heard it too. Her jaw tightened for half a second, barely perceptible before she painted over it with another brittle smile. "Oh, please," she said, lifting her voice loud enough for the room and every camera to hear. "You're all acting like she's important. She's just upset. Sensitive types always overreact." Her words landed flat this time. No laughter rose to cradle them. She pressed on anyway, desperate for the room to mirror her confidence again. "Look at her," she added, gesturing with her champagne flute, drenched in cake, teary-eyed, making cryptic threats. "It's pathetic." The black woman didn't move. Not a blink, not a twitch, just stillness. A stillness that unnerved anyone with enough intuition to detect danger. A reporter in the corner lifted his camera. "Who is she?" he whispered. His assistant shrugged, whispering back, "No idea, but she doesn't look like someone you humiliate and walk away from." Across the room, staff members froze behind silver trays. Guests edged aside, clearing space around the two women at the center, as if instinctively distancing themselves from a collision they could sense but not see. The heiress continued her performance, unaware of how alone she was becoming. "You know," she said, stepping closer, "if you didn't want cake on your face, maybe you shouldn't have gotten so close to the table." "Personal responsibility, sweetheart." The frosting-smeared woman tilted her head slightly, as though studying a malfunctioning machine. Then she spoke quietly, evenly. "You pushed me." The Heiress' breath hitched so small the cameras barely caught it, but the room heard. And that was all that mattered. A man in a navy tuxedo murmured, "I saw it." She shoved her. His companion nudged him. "Don't say that out loud." But truth had already begun, threading through the air like smoke. The heiress scoffed, but her voice cracked. "Oh, please, no one believes that." Several people lowered their eyes. They did believe it, and she could see it. Her voice sharpened. "Everyone here saw what happened. Didn't you?" Silence. Not a single head nodded. Not one person came to her defense. And for the first time, the heiress realized the room was no longer hers. A soft chime echoed from the black woman's phone, Rachel's voice, calm as a scalpel. "Mom, stage 2 complete. Internal alerts triggered, media partners notified. They'll receive the story before midnight. Before midnight, not before morning. Not tomorrow, tonight." The heiress blinked, her facade wavering like a candle flickering in a draft. What story?" she whispered. The black woman wiped a thin line of frosting from the corner of her eye. It smeared across her fingers like war paint. "The truth," she answered softly. "Every part of it." The heiress laughed high, sharp, panicked. "You don't have that kind of reach." The woman's gaze didn't budge. "I don't need reach," she said. "I have receipts." A ripple tore through the guests, small gasps, shifting stances, the unmistakable sound of people reevaluating their alliances in real time. Videos began uploading. Comments began flooding. The narrative had already escaped the room, sprinting into the world beyond chandeliers and marble. And the heiress? She wasn't laughing anymore. Because humiliation, she was learning, wasn't the same as power. But consequences those she had never faced. And now they were coming for her. The black woman finally lifted her chin, frosting glinting under the light like a fractured crown. "We're not done," she murmured. No one doubted it. A single vibration hummed through the black woman's phone, soft, controlled, surgical. She lowered it slowly, frosting streaking across the polished glass. The screen glowed with a single message from Rachel. "Stage 3 ready, awaiting your word." The air tightened. Guests shifted back instinctively, as if some ancient instinct warned them that they were standing too close to the epicenter of something irreversible. The heiress, flustered and cornered, clung desperately to her collapsing authority. She straightened her shoulders, forcing poise into her posture. "You're bluffing," she declared, voice trembling beneath a thin layer of arrogance. "You can't do anything to us. My family." The black woman cut her off, her voice quiet as falling glass. "Your family," she said, "should have taught you what respect costs." The ballroom froze. Her tone wasn't angry. It was factual. Like the reading of a verdict. The heiress tried to laugh it off, but it came out shattered. "This is ridiculous. You don't have the power to threaten us. You're nobody." The word hung in the air. Nobody. It echoed off marble and crystal. It scraped across the recording phones. And it landed like a spark in a field of dry grass. Several guests sucked in breaths. The word had crossed a line. The black woman stared at her, not wounded, not shaken, just done. "Rachel," she whispered into the phone, still watching the heiress. "Activate it." 2 words, 1 command. And the world shifted. Across the ballroom, the lights flickered not from electricity, but from hundreds of phones lighting up simultaneously. Notifications exploded. Screens flashed. Buzzes rippled through the crowd like shocked heartbeats. Someone gasped. "Oh my God, check the news," a woman whispered. "The Winthrop stock, it's plummeting." Another voice. "No, this can't be real." The heiress spun in confusion. What's happening?" A man in a charcoal suit stared at his phone, eyes wide. "It's your partnership." Xerix pulled out. Effective immediately. He looked up, disbelief turning into fear. "Your father's valuation just tanked. $500 million in minutes." Half the ballroom recoiled as if struck. The heiress went pale. "What? No, no, that's impossible," Daddy said. "The deal was guaranteed." The black woman stepped closer, not threatening, just present, immovable, unshakable. "Nothing is guaranteed," she murmured, "when integrity is optional." The Heiress lip trembled. You can't do this. But she couldn't finish, because the truth was unraveling in real time. A projector behind the orchestra suddenly lit up, automatically triggered by media alerts synced to the events system. A headline appeared: "Winthrop Partnership Collapses, Sources Cite Internal Misconduct and Breach of Protocol." Gasps erupted, crashing through the ballroom like thunder. Another headline followed: $1, 9B deal. Disintegrates questions rise about Heiress gala incident. The heiress stumbled backward, hand clutching the air, searching for something to hold on to. No, this isn't real. This isn't real. But the room knew better, because humiliation had been entertainment. But now, it was evidence. The black woman pressed the frosting-stained phone to her ear one more time. "Rachel," she said softly, "send the footage." Rachel's voice came through, steady and emotionless. "It's already in distribution, ma'am. 30 outlets. Global." The Heiress' knees buckled. Someone reached to help her, then thought better of it and stepped away. The black woman watched her crumble, not with triumph, not with cruelty, but with a calm clarity reserved for people who have endured enough. "You wanted an audience," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the hall like a final note. "Now you have one." And for the first time, the heiress realized the cake on the black woman's face wasn't her victory. It was her downfall. The ballroom buzzed like a live wire, every inch of air pulsing with panic. Guests huddled in clusters, their whispers sharp and frantic, eyes jumping between their screens and the heiress who stood frozen beneath the chandeliers. The glossy confidence she wore like armor had cracked. Now she looked small, shrinking under the weight of headlines, spreading faster than the frosting melting on the black woman's skin. Phones kept lighting up, more notifications, more chaos. A man near the donor wall muttered, "Winthrop Industries halted trading." They actually halted trading. His companion shook her head in disbelief. "They haven't frozen a Winthrop line in decades." What did she do? Everyone knew what she did. Everyone had seen it. A cake smashed into a woman's face. A shove disguised as clumsiness. A humiliation so public it had become a symbol before the frosting even dried. The orchestra, stunned into silence for minutes, tried to resume playing, but the violinist's bow stuttered mid-string. Their notes wilted, collapsing before they could fill the room. The heiress jerked forward, voice thundering with the last remnants of privilege. "Stop recording! All of you! Stop filming me!" But the cameras didn't lower. If anything, more rose. Because no one was filming her downfall. They were documenting proof. The black woman didn't move from her place. She stood still, frosting dripping like hours passing. Her calmness a gravitational force pulling the entire room into orbit. A middle-aged donor approached the heiress hesitantly. "Charlotte, your father wants you outside. Now." "My father?" The heiress scoffed, trying to snatch back her old arrogance. "He can wait." The donor swallowed. "No, he can't. He said it's urgent. The board is calling an emergency session." A low wave of dread washed across her face. She wasn't used to consequences. She wasn't built for them. She didn't recognize the terrain beneath her feet now that the ground had shifted. She spun toward the black woman. "This is your fault!" she shouted, her voice breaking at the edges. "You're ruining my family!" The black woman met her gaze calmly. "You did that the moment you decided someone else's dignity was disposable," Charlotte sputtered. "You think anyone will believe you? You're just—" The woman took a small step forward. "Just one." But the heiress stumbled back as if shoved. "I am exactly who you shouldn't have touched," the woman said quietly. Another round of gasps. The words weren't loud, yet they felt amplified by the truth coiled behind them. A sudden commotion near the ballroom entrance fractured what little confidence Charlotte still clung to. Security hurried inside, not toward the black woman, but toward the heiress. One of them leaned in. "Miss Winthrop, external press has arrived. They're demanding a statement. Your father wants you escorted out the side door. Now." The heiress stared, slack-jawed. "You're escorting me? Me?" Her voice cracked under the humiliation. Across the room, donors distanced themselves. Partygoers stepped aside. The safety net shed been raised inside shrank to nothing, and the frosting-covered woman watched the shift without gloating. Her expression didn't sharpen. It softened into something close to sorrow. Because she knew what the heiress was experiencing for the first time. Consequences didn't just sting. They reshaped you. Charlotte lunged forward, desperation clawing through her voice. "Undo it," she demanded. "Call your little assistant. Fix this. Fix it!" The black woman tilted her head, voice calm as winter rain. "I don't fix what isn't broken. I correct what is." Charlotte's breath caught. Her lip trembled. She wasn't used to losing, especially not to someone she believed she could humiliate without cost. "Who are you?" she whispered. The woman stepped fully into the chandelier's light, frosting shimmering like fractured gold across her skin. "Someone your father needed," she said, "and someone you should have respected." Behind them, more headlines flashed across screens. Winthrop board members demand accountability. Investors pull support after gala incident. Public outrage erupts over Heiress behavior. Charlotte's face drained of the last hint of arrogance. The black woman wiped one final streak of cake from her cheek. "You wanted attention," she said softly. Her voice wasn't cruel, it was honest. "Now you have it." And as the room braced for the next wave of fallout, Charlotte Winthrop finally understood the most painful truth of the night. She hadn't just humiliated a stranger. She had awakened a force she was never meant to challenge. The fallout didn't spread like news. It spread like wildfire. Within minutes, the ballroom's towering doors opened and gusts of cold night air swept in, carrying with them the distant hum of reporters, flashing cameras, and raised voices. The press had arrived in force, drawn by the alerts Rachel had triggered, and the tidal wave of online outrage spiraling outward from every phone in the room. Guests checked their screens again, eyes widening as the metrics updated in real time. 6 million views already? No way, how is it spreading that fast? It's global. Look, Brazil, South Africa, the UK, everywhere. Charlotte Winthrop's humiliation had become international. The orchestra, defeated, slowly set down their instruments. Their final note had died long before the music stopped. A new headline flashed, bold, merciless, impossible to ignore. "Public Demons Accountability After Cake Assault on Black Woman at Gala." Someone whispered, "Assault?" Another corrected, "It was assault." Silence agreed. Charlotte's breathing turned shallow, ragged with fear she'd never felt before. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't scandal. This was public reckoning. She stumbled forward. "Someone stop this! Please! This is getting blown out of..." A guest held up a phone to her face. "Is this blown out of proportion?" he asked quietly. On his screen, the video played in a tight loop. Charlotte shoving the cake, the frosting exploding across the black woman's face. The laughter, the pointing, the smirk. It was undeniable. No, delete that," Charlotte stammered, reaching for the phone. He pulled it away sharply. "I'm not deleting evidence." The word hit her like a physical blow. Evidence. Charlotte spun desperately toward the black woman, who remained calm, composed, and heartbreakingly dignified, despite the frosting still clinging to her skin. "Tell them," Charlotte pleaded. "Tell them you overreacted. Tell them you don't want this." The woman didn't move. "I don't speak to rewrite truth," she said softly, "only to reveal it." Her voice wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. It was steady, like someone who had been forced to endure far too many moments like this and had learned, finally, how to reclaim them. Behind them, another alert blasted through the ballroom speakers, the event's AV system overloaded by the volume of incoming news. Winthrop Family Foundation faces massive donor withdrawals. A gasp rode the length of the room. Charlotte shook her head violently. "Stop! Please stop!" But the world had already decided. Public sympathy had shifted firmly, irrevocably, toward the woman covered in cake. Guests who had laughed earlier now avoided Charlotte's eyes. Some apologized under their breath when they looked at the black woman, guilt stinging their voices. Even the staff, waiters, technicians, security stood a little taller near her, as if gravity itself had realigned. Charlotte's voice cracked into a whisper. This can't be happening." The black woman finally looked at her, really looked at her with an expression devoid of hatred or triumph. "Just truth. Actions follow people," she said gently. "And tonight, yours caught up." Charlotte's legs gave out, and as she sank to the marble floor, the world above her continued to turn, but no longer in her favor. The ballroom felt different now, lighter in some places, heavier in others, as if the moral gravity of the room had shifted, pulling dignity upward and arrogance down where it belonged. Charlotte remained on the marble floor, trembling, mascara streaking down her cheeks like wilted echoes of her former poise. No one rushed to help her, not because they were cruel, but because they finally understood what tonight truly was. Not a spectacle. A correction. The black woman stepped back from her, just enough to reclaim the space she had been denied. Frosting still clung to her dress, drying in pale ridges along the fabric. But her presence, her posture rose with quiet command. Rachel's voice returned through the phone, calm and clinical. "Mom, philanthropic partners are ready. Funds can be redirected on your approval." The woman inhaled slowly, letting the weight of that moment settle. This wasn't about revenge. It never had been. It was about rebalancing the scale. "Proceed," she said softly. "Shift the entire $1.9b allocation to the Cole Fellowship Fund." There was a pause, then Rachel confirmed, "It's done. The public statement is live." The guests in the ballroom refreshed their screens. Then shock, admiration, awe ripples moved through the crowd. A new headline glowed across every phone. "CEO redirects $1.9b to support black innovators after gala assault." Historic investment creates global opportunities for marginalized entrepreneurs, someone whispered. She turned humiliation into generational change. Another responded, "That's power. That's leadership." Even the chandeliers seemed to glow differently, their gold reflections warming as if recognizing the shift in narrative. The black woman walked toward the center of the room. Not to make a speech, she didn't need one, but to stand where the world could finally see her without distortion. One of the donors approached cautiously. "Mom, we had no idea who you were." She met his gaze with a tired but steady calm. "That's the point," she replied. "People often decide how to treat others before learning who they're speaking to." The words hung in the air, ringing louder than any microphone. More guests stepped forward, not crowding, not demanding, just offering apologies, acknowledgments, recognition. Not because she was wealthy, but because they finally saw the person they should have seen from the beginning. Charlotte watched this from the floor, shaking. "What happens now?" she whispered. The woman turned toward her, the softest sorrow flickering across her eyes. "Now," she said, "the world learns what respect really looks like." Charlotte swallowed hard. "What about my family? My future?" "That," the woman replied gently, "is no longer in my hands. Not anger, not vengeance, just truth." As she moved toward the exit, the crowd instinctively parted, not out of fear, but out of reverence. She didn't walk like someone who had been humiliated. She walked like someone who had transformed the room she was supposed to be broken in. And as she stepped past the last row of guests, someone whispered the words the night had been building toward. She didn't just end the deal. Another answered quietly. She rewrote the future. The night air outside the gala was cool, steady, unbothered by the chaos unraveling behind the glass doors. Reporters crowded the entrance, microphones raised not toward Charlotte Winthrop, who was being rushed through a side exit by security, but toward the woman who stepped into the light with frosting still drying across her skin. Flashbulbs burst, questions flew. But she didn't slow. Her steps were measured, almost serene, not triumphant, not vindictive, just certain. Inside, the ballroom's collapse continued. The Winthrop family board formally suspended Charlotte pending investigation. Donors withdrew support from the foundation at record speed. Corporate partners severed ties before dessert had even been cleared. Somewhere in the flurry, Charlotte stood in a hallway, shoulders shaking, mascara streaking down her face, as her father delivered the kind of reprimand she'd never heard before, not about reputation, not about wealth, but about consequences, real ones. And the footage? The footage kept climbing. 20 million views, 40, 60, not because of scandal, but because of poise. The world wasn't talking about the cake anymore. They were talking about the woman who remained composed while humiliated, and powerful while silent. At the curb, a black sedan pulled up. Rachel stepped out, holding a towel and a bottle of water. "Everything's finalized," she said gently as the woman approached. "The fund is active. Applications are already coming in." The black woman nodded, wiping the last streak of frosting from her jawline. "Good," she murmured. "Let something meaningful grow from what they tried to break." Rachel hesitated. "You know everyone is calling you a hero, right?" She almost smiled. "Heroes seek the spotlight. I don't—" She opened the car door, then paused, glancing back at the glowing building behind her, where music had died and arrogance had crumbled. "They'll rebuild," Rachel said quietly. "Maybe," the woman replied. "But next time, they'll know the cost of disrespect." The door closed with a soft, decisive click. As the car pulled away, the gala's lights reflected across the windows like fading echoes of a world that had finally been corrected. No speeches, no victory lap, just a final truth settling over the night like a quiet verdict. Dignity isn't loud, it's lasting.